welcome to Focus Today, and delighted to have back with us today Kenneth Abramowitz. He is the author of a fascinating book called The Multifront War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. He's also the managing general partner and co-founder of the NGN Capital. Ken has been a contributor to various organizations that are fighting to protect Israel and America from political Islam and the radical left. He's the founder of SaveTheWest.com, and there's a picture of the landing page, a website dedicated to saving Western civilization from itself. Again, SaveTheWest.com. Ken, good to see you. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about the problems there.
Sorry, I'm sorry too, but here I am.
Here you are. You're the man. Good to see you. A lot to get caught up in a short amount of time. The United Against Nuclear Iran. Who is that organization, and why are they important?
Well, I've attended some of their conferences years back. I don't have any direct contact with them, but almost anyone who's united against Islamic Iran are good people. I mean, Iran is a country, almost 90 million people, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, but they're ruled by a criminal organization, what I call a death cult. Mm-hmm. So anyone who wants to free the people from the oppressive government are good people.
They apparently put out a plan called the 100-day plan for the incoming Trump administration on Iran. Are you familiar with that and what it said?
No. Do you have a few quick highlights you want to mention to me?
I guess maybe from your perspective, things are going to change coming up in about 5 days as it relates to the Middle East with the incoming new administration. What do you think will be the approach of the Trump administration towards Iran these days?
Well, the Trump administration is administration in progress. So they have to hire a lot of people, and then the people have to hire staff, and then they have to write position papers, and then they have to create policy. So the question is, what will they eventually come to the conclusion is? And so I'm just going to guess that they'll eventually come to the conclusion, even though they like to make deals, they'll soon realize there's no deal to be made with Iran. Iran's a professional terror organization, and they talk nicely, but you can't consummate a deal with them.
So there's two.
They'll come to that conclusion.
There are two fronts from when Trump was president before. There were two fronts. One is that he obviously put a lot of tariff pressure on them and took their economy and basically put it in the ditch. And now you have the front of them sponsoring all of the attacks against Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. So where you have is Israel wants to take out probably the leadership. President Trump already has a record of destroying their economy. What do you think will be the first?
Look, they're going to have to do all of the above. So they're going to have to go to immediate maximum pressure. They're going to have to force China and anybody else to stop buying oil from Iran. Israel and America, or Israel by itself, but I think Israel and America will have to blow up their nuclear sites and bring their economy to a standstill and demand regime change. See, Iran has 600,000 worldwide terrorists. 300,000 physical terrorists, 100,000 narco-terrorists, 200,000 cultural terrorists. They're not going to willingly dismantle their worldwide terror organization. They're not going to willingly dismantle their nuclear program that they spent 30 or something years on. There's no non-military solution, and I think Trump people will come to that conclusion, although they haven't come to that conclusion just yet.
Wow. How much of a setback has Iran experienced as a result of Hezbollah and Hamas? Is it significant, or is it just temporary knockdown?
Well, this is part of Iran's 300,000 worldwide physical terrorists. So Israel's destroyed Hamas, the 40,000 bad guys in Gaza. they've dramatically or half destroyed the 50,000 bad guys in Lebanon. They've dramatically hurt the 50,000 bad guy terrorists in Yemen, and now they're going to have to come for Iran. I mean, so there's, as I said, there's no non-military solution. We're in a state of war. And at the end of a state of war, either Iran wins and takes over the Middle East and the world, or America wins and Iran regime change has been accomplished. There's no middle ground here.
How problematic, Ken, is the fall of Syria?
Well, that was another embarrassing, dramatic course of events against Iran caused by Israel. By the way, Iran's declared war on the world. They promised to kill all the Jews in Israel and all the Christians in America. And little Israel, with 10 million people, is doing 98% of the fighting. Little Israel's defending America, Europe, the Muslims in the Middle East from basically a lunatic death cult. It's time for America to start joining in. I mean, it's just not right to expect a country of 10 million people to save $2.5 billion and save Western civilization all by itself.
In the meantime, Turkey has got its eye on Syria, while Israel has taken out its military capability, at least neutralized it for now. And Turkey's a member of NATO. How complicated is that?
That's very complicated. Turkey and Qatar are what I call frenemies. They're friends in the morning, they're enemies in the afternoon. As you said, Turkey's in NATO. Qatar is a near NATO partner. And both of them are supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. They're building mosques throughout the world. They're training their imams to call for the death of Jews, Christians, and Hindus. And we have to stop them. You see, in the Middle East, there's two elephants in the room. There's the Iran death cult, and there's the Muslim Brotherhood cultural terror organization. And these two are fighting with each other for the past 1,400 years. And little Israel's stuck in the middle, and America's stuck in the middle of a 1,400-year war between these two elephants.
To your point where it's going to take a while for the Trump administration to get up and running before they develop an internal policy, it could be that Israel can't wait for that. It could be that they still need a green light from the United States to continue on. Do you expect that?
Israel can't wait. By the way, America can't wait. It's just America doesn't know that. Right now, Iran has no choice but to race for a nuclear weapon, and Israel and America have no choice but to stop them. And the only way to stop them is to stop them. So it's simple in a way, and America has to come to that conclusion. Now, by the way, America right now is in the process of maybe creating a massive strategic blunder in the Middle East by pressuring Israel to a ceasefire with Hamas when they should be pressuring Hamas, not Israel. And so I hope the Trump administration fixes this strategic error, because it'll impair their ability to fight and defend the Middle East.
Well, they've been to the table before. It all hinges on the release of hostages. What's different this time?
Well, when you have a good guy, Israel, negotiating with a Hamas death cult, and you want to put pressure on a deal, you put 100% of the pressure on Hamas. You don't put pressure on the good guys. You can have a deal in 10 minutes by telling the good guys to surrender. Well, what kind of message does that send? You want the bad guys to surrender, and the Trump administration better figure this out, or they'll start off Monday with a massive strategic error.
In the meantime, President-elect Trump said hell will be paid if these hostages aren't released before Monday. Have any idea what that is?
Well, he didn't define hell, and he didn't define who's going to pay. So putting words in his mouth, he should have said Iran and its death cult friends in Hamas will have hell to pay if they don't surrender to Israel by Monday. That's what he should have said. But by leaving it vague and not saying who's going to be the recipient of, so to speak, hell, he's in effect putting pressure on Israel to have a deal for Monday, which is not in Israel's interest or America's interest or even Trump's political interests. So we have an administration that's starting off on the wrong foot. I hope they correct themselves fast. They only have about 5 days.
Let me press that a little bit. Do you really think that's his motive, is to put pressure on Israel, or is he making a broader statement?
I think he created a directive out of the goodness of his heart and intellect to have a deal. But he didn't properly advise his negotiators. Robert Woodcock, his lead negotiator, is a real estate guy, knows nothing about the Middle East, is very friendly with Qatar, which is a frenemy of America, and is hostile to Israel, which is a friend of America. So he put the wrong person in charge and then didn't give him the right direction. And so therefore, he's creating what's going to be a huge, to quote President Trump, strategic error on the first day of his new administration, which is not the way to start off a new administration.
Could it be, Ken, that hell to pay relates to the fact that there are American hostages and that his interest is in getting Americans back, and the people holding Americans are Hamas, and they're going to be the ones to receive the hell?
Sure, but all the decisions by Hamas are made by Iran. So he should have said Iran will have hell to pay. Hamas, what are you going to do to Hamas? They have 5,000 soldiers left under the ground. What's America going to do? America's going to send a B-52 and just blow up all of Gaza? No. So the hell to pay was misdirected at Hamas. It should have been directed at Iran. Iran's making the decisions, and his foreign policy people should have told him to focus on Iran, not Hamas.
Okay. I see your point. Don't get me wrong. I get your point. I'm just wondering if it's a little bit broader in his intent, because I think we all know at the end of the day it is Iran.
Yes, and also Israel could bring all hell to pay against Hamas. They've already done that. So there's not much left of Hamas to bring hell to pay. There's a lot of Iran left to bring hell to pay. And Iran has to pay for 45 years of crimes against humanity. This is not Islamo-Nazi culture. This is worse than Hitler. And we have to have tribunals of the leadership of this death cult. And so Trump doesn't understand the enormity of the challenge in dealing with the Iran death cult.
Where does this leave Saudi Arabia in the mix?
Well, Saudi Arabia is a good guy. The Emirates, good guys. Israel, good guys. So they're getting along together fine. It's that the Islamists, in other words, the countries who use Islam as a political weapon, are basically Iran and Turkey and Qatar, basically are out to destroy Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and Israel, because the Islamists tolerate no minorities, no dissension from what they regard as a pure form of Islam. So America's protecting Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates from Iran and Turkey and Qatar. And the Trump administration hasn't quite figured that out.
Even though they were the architect of the Abrahamic Accord.
Yes, their blind spot is they don't understand that Turkey and Qatar are more enemies than friends and have to be dealt with harshly, not with kid gloves. And Iran is 100% enemy and can only be dealt with military means. So the Trump administration has a lot to learn, and they're now over their heads, so to speak, trying to create a deal, a manufacture deal in honor of the inauguration day, which makes no sense.
Ultimately, what does NATO do with Turkey?
NATO has a huge dilemma with Turkey. It doesn't want them as an enemy, and they're not a very good friend. So NATO and America have to basically say to Turkey, these are the rules that you have to abide by if you want to live in Western civilization. If you want to live in civilization, this is what you have to do. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. And we're basically going to run NATO without you. And America has to be tough with both Turkey and Qatar. We don't know how to deal with frenemies very well, but you have to deal with them sternly and say, this is what we expect of you, and we're going to hold you accountable to become normal.
Well, Ken, isn't it clear what Turkey really is? I mean, they're a terrorist state. Why is this even being talked about? Why don't they just boot them out?
Well, there's two forms of terror. There's more, but to make it simple, there's two forms. There's physical terror, like Iran. Iran just wants to kill everybody. Turkey and Qatar are different. They want to set up mosques, schools, imams, preach non-coexistence with Christians, Jews, and Hindus, and foment insurrection country by country, and then take over that country with more babies and more immigrants. So I call them a cultural death cult as opposed to a physical death cult. But we don't know how to deal with any of these death cults because it's so alien to Western thinking.
All right, one last question. It's a big one. If in the next whatever time, 60 days, 90 days, Iran is neutralized, maybe with a regime change, nuclear capabilities taken out, maybe refineries taken, I don't know, but it's neutralized. It's no longer a factor. What impact does that have?
Huge. That's what has to happen. And that's what I hope happens, and that's what I think is going to happen. I'm very optimistic about the second half of 2025 and beyond. I'm very pessimistic about the first 6 months. The first 6 months is a big mess or chaos as America reasserts its authority on the world. And so look for a lot of bombs and a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos as we recalibrate our relationships with our friends, our enemies, and our frenemies. And if we do that properly in the first half of the year, then the Trump administration will be very successful for the next 3.5 years after that.
Okay, I do have one more question. I've always been, my brain's kind of gone on till about Egypt's role in all of this, because when they finally got into Hamas, they discovered these huge tunnels that went all the way to Egypt. So that makes Egypt complicit, while at the same time, the administration there seems to be compliant. What's your take on Egypt?
This is another frenemy issue. Egypt is a friend in the morning, enemy in the afternoon. So we supply them with a couple $2 billion a year for 40 years now of weapons. So in that sense, they like us and they like our weapons. But they foment anti-Semitism. They allowed or facilitated, however you want to look at it, Hamas. Huge armament resupply to Hamas. They're complicit in the Israel-Hamas war. They're complicit in the genocide by Hamas of 1,200 Israelis. They have blood all over their hands. And this is another example, like I mentioned with Turkey and Qatar, where the administration has to say, we're not playing this frenemy game. We're happy for you to be our friends, and we're not happy to be your enemies, and let's fix our relationship. Another issue of very stern directives from the Trump administration that will be necessary.
All right, check out Ken's website, SaveTheWest.com. There's a picture of the website, SaveTheWest.com. And of course, also check out his book, The Multifront War. And there's a picture of the cover of that book there on the screen. Ken, good to see you. Thanks for your time. Sorry we had a little trouble getting you this morning, but it's always a joy to have you. Thank you, my friend.
It's great to be with you anytime. Thank you.